April 8, 1943. 27,000 feet over Rouen, France. The air is thin, so thin it feels like the world has narrowed to the inside of a trembling cockpit and the shriek of wind shearing across aluminum skin. Frost forms on the edges of the canopy frame. Oxygen masks crackle and hiss with every breath. Below, the broad patchwork fields of northern France drift by as though glimpsed through the wrong end of a telescope, distant, hazy, unreal. Lieutenant Harold Comstock of the 63rd Fighter Squadron keeps his eyes locked on the sky ahead, gloved hands wrapped tightly around the controls of the odd, squat, overweight fighter that Americans jokingly call the Jug, and that their German opponents have already begun calling something worse, the Fliegen Milchflash, the flying milk bottle. And to be fair, it does look like one. Its fuselage is bulbous, almost comically thick, tapering to a narrow tail that seems too small to balance the bloated body. The wings are broad and sturdy, but from a distance, the fighter lacks the sleek menace of a Bf-109 or the purposeful lines of a Spitfire. It has none of the predatory elegance that aces brag about in bars. Yet here it is, streaking over Europe on its combat debut. Comstock's squadron has been ordered to sweep ahead of the day's bombing raids, one of the first times the new P-47 Thunderbolt has been committed in strength. The pilots of the 56th Fighter Group have flown it for months in training, and more than a few privately doubt that the beast can survive a serious fight. The Germans, meanwhile, don't doubt anything. They simply laugh. Comstock adjusts a dial on his oxygen regulator, then glances at the altimeter. 27,200 feet. This is supposed to be the Thunderbolt's domain, thin air where the high-altitude turbo-supercharger, that complex, Rube Goldberg-like nest of ducts, turbines, and piping, can gulp oxygen and force it into the massive Pratt & Amp, Whitney A2800 engine. The Thunderbolt is theoretically at its best above 25,000 feet. But theories do not win dogfights. Nor do they save pilots. The radio crackles. Red leader, this is Red 2, I've got contrails at 10 o'clock high. Could be bandits. Comstock's heart rate kicks upward. He swings his head to the left, searching the cold blue horizon. Then he sees them. Thin white scratches appear against the sky. Dozens of them. Converging. Messerschmitts. Bf-109GS, sleek, needle-nosed, built for one thing, killing enemy fighters. They appear as dark dots at first, then silhouettes, then sun-glinting predators diving in perfect formation. The Germans have the advantage: sun, altitude, position. Classic tactics. Watch it, boys. Comstock calls out. We've got company. The contrails grow thicker as the Germans descend. A voice comes through the radio, someone from sea flight. Jugs on your belly. Brake, brake, brake. But the sky explodes before anyone can finish. The first burst of cannon fire rips past Comstock's canopy. The sharp, ripping thud of 20mm shells detonating in air vibrates his ribs. A streak of yellow traces slices across his nose, missing by feet. Comstock yanks the control stick back. The Jug responds sluggishly at first, too heavy, too slow in the opening split second. And somewhere in that split second, the Germans laugh. They've already seen what this new American fighter can do. Or rather, what it can't. The Jug's disastrous first impression. The P-47 is brand new to the European theater. Built by Republic Aviation on Long Island, it was introduced with fanfare, but the Luftwaffe pilots who encountered it in early 1943 were underwhelmed. Reports that circulated among Jagdgeschwader veterans were dismissive at best. Heavy. Slow. Poor climb. Turns like a barn. To men like Oberleutnant Eggenmeyer, one of the Luftwaffe's most gifted tacticians, the P-47 seemed like a clumsy joke. German intelligence quickly concluded that this American brute was simply too large and too sluggish to pose a threat to experienced fighters flying nimble Bf-109GS or FW-190As. And so when German pilots saw Thunderbolts, they attacked boldly and without hesitation. Back in the present sky over Rouen, the Messerschmitts are doing exactly that. Comstock banks sharply, trying to bleed airspeed and throw off his attackers. His heavy fighter shudders in the turn, its wide wings groaning under stress. He glances over his shoulder, two 109s are right behind him. The first pours traces into the jug, and flashes of light explode along the starboard wing. The second dives past, cutting off Comstock's escape. "Come on, old girl," Comstock mutters. "Turn." The jug isn't built for knife fights, but Comstock has no choice. He rolls out of the turn, dives slightly, opens the throttle. The cockpit vibrates as the engine roars, the turbo supercharger whining like a mechanical banshee. The aircraft surges forward. Now he has speed. And speed is life. A gun platform like nothing before. The nose of the German fighter sweeps across Comstock's canopy, lining up for another burst. Comstock flips the arming switches. 8 of them. 8 Browning AN M2.50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing. He squeezes the trigger. And the jug speaks. The recoil is thunderous. The entire aircraft shudders as 13 pounds of lead per second erupt from its wings. Traces arc outward in 2 converging streams, forming a deadly lattice of fire. A Bf-109 flashes past his nose, right into the storm. The German pilot jerks his aircraft away, but a fraction too late. Comstock's rounds rake the Messerschmitt's wing root and cockpit. A panel tears free. Smoke bursts from the fuselage. The 109 rolls onto its back, trailing flame, and plunges downward. Another one behind it breaks off immediately. Because even veteran Luftwaffe pilots know one thing. You cannot fly through the fire of 8 American .50s. You can only pray you're not in their path. Comstock steadies his breathing. Then he looks around. And his stomach sinks. All around him, P-47s are being swarmed. A pilot from B flight spirals downward trailing oil. Another spins uncontrollably after a burst of cannon shells blows apart his tail. The debut of the Thunderbolt is becoming a bloodbath. Comstock forces himself to think with icy clarity. He has altitude. He has speed. He has to get his flight back together. "Red flight, form on me," he calls. "Let's climb, get above them." He pulls the jug upward, feeling its weight, its stubborn mass, resisting the climb. Below, German fighters peel away from their attacks and pursue. The Messerschmitts climb faster. Faster. They're gaining. Comstock clenches his jaw. This is it, the critical weakness the Germans have already identified. The Thunderbolt simply cannot climb like the sleek, lightweight 109G. It is the difference between a heavyweight boxer and a fencer. Speed versus agility. Mass versus finesse. Power versus precision. And right now, finesse is winning. The first lesson of the war. 1 week earlier, pilots of the 56th Fighter Group sat in a briefing room at Horsham St. Faith in England. Major Hubert Hub Zemke, already a legend and destined to become the leading tactician of the P-47, paced in front of a chalkboard. He tapped the board with a pointer. "This," he said, pointing to a rough sketch of the Jaguar's favorite tactic, "is the vertical dive and climb. The Germans are masters of it. They'll attack with height, strike hard, then zoom up where you can't follow. They've been doing this for years." Zemke turned to the assembled pilots. "And you are not going to follow them into a climb. Not in this ship." A ripple of uneasy laughter went around the room. Everyone knew the jug's deficiencies. But Zemke continued. "You're going to fight your fight. Use what you have. Don't dogfight them. Boom and zoom. High-speed slashing attacks. Keep the throttle open. Keep your speed. Keep your altitude." He paused. "And when you shoot, shoot to kill. You have the firepower to take down anything in the Luftwaffe with one good burst." Someone in the back muttered, "Assuming we can hit anything while this thing shakes itself apart." More laughter. Even Zemke smiled. Because everyone was thinking it. The Thunderbolt looked ridiculous. It flew awkwardly. It climbed poorly. It demanded constant attention. In short, it was an aircraft the Luftwaffe believed it could bully without consequence. But Zemke knew something else, something the Germans did not yet appreciate. The jug was nearly indestructible. And its engine, if used correctly, could turn the tide at altitude. But correct use required time, experience, tactics. And on April 8, 1943, the Thunderbolt's pilots had none of those yet. Back over France, Comstock hits the peak of his climb and noses over. He's managed to gain only a few hundred feet before the 109s close the gap. Traces slice past his canopy. If he keeps trying to climb, he'll die. Zemke's lecture echoes in his mind. Don't fight their fight. Comstock slams the throttle forward. The Jug accelerates like a boulder rolling downhill, slow at first, then faster and faster, gathering unstoppable momentum. His airspeed indicator ticks upward. 350 miles per hour. 1. 2. The cockpit vibrates. The turbo supercharger howls. He pushes the nose lower. The 109s lose ground. He's escaping. Red leader, Red 2, I'm with you, another pilot calls. A second Jug slides into formation beside him. Then a third. They bank together, opening distance from the German fighters. The 109s give chase but quickly abandon it. They know better than to pursue a P-47 in a dive. The Jug may climb poorly, but it dives like an avalanche. Comstock glances downward. Smoke trails mark where P-47s have gone down. One spirals into the clouds far below. Another explodes in a puff of flame after catching a full burst from an FW-190. The Luftwaffe pilots aren't just laughing. They are winning. On German airfields that spring, pilots gather around mess tables, boasting and smirking over cups of ersatz coffee. One report from a seasoned 109 ace summarizes the general attitude. The new American fighter is so heavy it cannot stay in the fight. We engage. It dives away. It cannot climb with us. It cannot turn. It offers no challenge to a properly trained pilot. Another pilot of WWII 26 reportedly joked, "If the Americans wish to send refrigerators into combat, let them. We will simply open them and take what is inside." The laughter wasn't just mockery. It was confidence. Confidence built on experience. Confidence built on victories in Spain, Poland, France, the Balkans, the Soviet Union. The Luftwaffe had been fighting continuously since 1936. The Americans had been here for 3 months. And their newest fighter looked like a milk jug. Or worse, a target. Throughout April and May, Thunderbolts continue to engage German fighters with mixed results. Losses mount. The Luftwaffe reports increasing numbers of victories over the milk bottle. But something begins to shift. A pattern emerges. The Germans can damage a Jug easily. They can pepper it with cannon fire. They can tear holes in its wings. They can blast chunks off its tail. But killing it? That's another matter. P-47s limp home with terrifying damage, entire control surfaces ripped apart, fuselages riddled with holes, engines coughing smoke like wounded dragons. Yet they land. Again. And again. And again. Word spreads among American pilots, this thing can take a beating. Word spreads among German pilots too, in a different tone, these new fighters refuse to die. But durability alone does not win wars. Something more is needed. Something dramatic. And it is about to happen. June 26, 1943. Over northern France. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson of the 61st Fighter Squadron checks his mirrors and sees something horrifying. A Messerschmitt is behind him. Close. Too close. He banks hard left. The 109 stays glued to his tail. He banks right. It follows. He dives. The 109 dives with him. Johnson's Jug shudders under the strain. He is alone, separated from his flight. And the German behind him is relentless. A burst of cannon fire slams into Johnson's aircraft. Something explodes behind him. Oxygen screams out of a ruptured line. His canopy fills with smoke. Johnson coughs, tries to settle the Jug. But the 109 closes again. Another burst rakes the fuselage. Johnson yells as shrapnel cuts into his leg. The controls vibrate violently. The engine sputters, then catches again. The Jug keeps flying. The German pulls alongside for a moment. Johnson sees the pilot's face through the canopy. Confident. Certain of victory. The 109 swings behind him again. More cannon fire. More impacts. More smoke. Johnson's Jug is dying, but not fast enough for the Germans' taste. The Messerschmitt closes to point-blank range, almost suicidal proximity, and opens fire again. Johnson braces for the final explosion. But it doesn't come. The Jug still flies. Trailing fire. Streaming smoke. But flying. The German ace pulls alongside one last time, shaking his head in disbelief. Then, incredibly, he raises his hand in a salute, acknowledging Johnson's refusal to die. Then he breaks away. Johnson nurses the battered jug southward. Controls barely function. Instruments flicker. The engine rattles like a bucket of bolts. He expects it to seize at any moment. But it doesn't. Not yet. The English coastline appears like a mirage. Johnson brings the jug down hard on the runway. It skids to a halt, trailing smoke. Ground crews rush forward, then freeze. The aircraft looks like it has been dragged through hell. More than 200 bullet holes riddle the fuselage. Parts of the tail are missing. The canopy is shattered. Control cables are nearly severed. One mechanic mutters, "How the hell did this thing stay in the air?" Another answers, "Because it's a Thunderbolt." The story spreads like wildfire. Robert Johnson becomes a symbol. A living legend. Proof that the jug is something the Germans never expected, a beast that refuses to die. Even as Johnson's story becomes famous, pilots like Zemke know the truth. The jug still isn't winning the air war. Not yet. It needs better tactics. Better training. Better use of its turbo-supercharger. Better use of its devastating firepower. And, critically, it needs a change the Germans won't see coming. A change that will make their laughter die in their throats. The Thunderbolt's turbo-supercharger is both its greatest asset and its greatest curse. Engineers at Republic Aviation designed it to make the P-47 dominate at high altitude, but early pilots often misused it. They overboosted the engine, burned out components, or simply gave up on the complex system. But Zemke insists they learn. He drills pilots relentlessly. * manage your throttle. * monitor turbine speed. * control manifold pressure. * use the high-altitude power band. And slowly, the pilots learn. They discover that above 28,000 feet, the jug is a different aircraft, faster than a 109G, more powerful in a dive, capable of maintaining energy far better than its rivals. Suddenly, the milk bottle can hunt. Up high, the air thins. Engines gasp. Germans grow nervous. Because something terrifying happens. When the jug is used correctly, nothing can touch it at altitude. But the Germans don't know that. Not yet. July 1943. Reconnaissance intercepts capture snippets of German radio chatter during engagements with Thunderbolts. Achtung, Achtung, these new American fighters climb better today. Do not follow the Thunderbolt into a dive. Their firepower is too heavy, brake early. The tone is no longer mocking. It is wary. A shift has begun. But the real shift, the one that will turn the jug from a joke into a nightmare, is still months away. Because in early 1944, the US will introduce a modification so simple, so brilliant, that it will fundamentally transform the Thunderbolt's performance. A modification that will blindside German intelligence. A modification that will make Adolf Galland himself admit, "We made a terrible mistake." By late 1943, the Thunderbolt's reputation is changing, but only among those who fight it. German pilots begin warning newcomers. Do not get close. Do not take their fire. They are slow to turn, but their guns are death. Stories spread of 109s disintegrated by a 1-second burst. Of FW-190s torn apart midair. Of pilots who never saw the traces before their aircraft exploded. But stories are not enough to reverse a year of mockery. To the wider Luftwaffe, the jug is still a cumbersome American brute. An overweight, overbuilt oddity. An aircraft that can be beaten, if engaged correctly. In a sense, the Germans are right. At least, for now. The jug still struggles against experienced pilots who use altitude advantage and vertical maneuvers. It still suffers from long-range limitations. It still has teething problems with engines, superchargers, and fuel systems. It is improving, but not yet dominant. That dominance will come soon. Very soon. Because the Americans are about to unleash the full potential of their milk bottle. And the Germans are about to learn fear. Late November 1943. The 56th Fighter Group escorts B-17s and B-24s deep into Germany. Fighting becomes more brutal than ever. Losses are heavy on both sides, and the Luftwaffe grows increasingly desperate. High above Bremen, Three 109s through a formation of jugs, only to be met with furious .50 cal fire. Two go down instantly. The third limps away trailing smoke. For the first time, German pilots report being outgunned. Then December brings more shock. A flight of Thunderbolts bounces a staffel of FW-190s at 32,000 feet. The Germans try to climb away, but can't. Their engines sputter. Their aircraft falter. The jugs tear through them. When the survivors land, one shaken pilot is overheard muttering, "What sort of monster can fight at that height?" The answer comes back to him in a whisper, "A new kind." But the truth is, the jug is not yet new. What is coming in 1944 will be a change in propeller design, a change so simple yet so revolutionary that it will feel, to the Germans, like the Americans have suddenly deployed an entirely different aircraft. One with terrifying acceleration. One that can climb like a predator. One that can chase down anything in the sky. And with the 8.50 cal machine guns unchanged, only now easier to bring to bear, the Thunderbolt will become the Luftwaffe's nightmare. But that transformation is still on the horizon. For now, the sky over Europe is filled with fire, smoke, and hard lessons. The jug is learning. Improving. Becoming something deadlier. Something invincible. Something inevitable. And every German pilot who dismisses it today will soon regret it. Wind claws against aluminum. Frost crusts the canopy edges. The frigid stratospheric air turns contrails into gleaming white scars that stretch behind hundreds of American bombers pushing toward their target, massive B-17s and B-24s grinding forward in tight formation, engines rumbling like distant thunder over the German heartland. Above and ahead of them, riding the razor-thin line between life-sustaining air and the edge of space, is the newly hardened 56th Fighter Group. The Jugs. Hubs men. Their engines roar like contained storms, turbo-superchargers glowing a dull red beneath their fuselages. The pilots are cold, exhausted, and tense, but also something else. Confident. Because they know a secret the Germans have not yet discovered. Their Thunderbolts are no longer the clumsy milk bottles of early 1943. They are evolving, changing, becoming predators. And today will prove it. Lieutenant Francis Gabby Gabreski checks his mirror, adjusting his oxygen mask. His P-47 rumbles with barely restrained power. The airframe vibrates as he climbs another few hundred feet above the bomber stream, scanning for incoming interceptors. A muffled voice crackles in, "Blue leader, I've got glints at 1 o'clock high." Gabreski turns. A thin line of sunlight flashes off approaching wings. Dozens of them. Then more. Then many more. Jagdgeschwader 11. Jagdgeschwader 1. Jagdgeschwader 3. Over 100 German fighters, Bf-109GS and FW-190s, sweeping in from sun angle, diving fast, wings shimmering. They aren't coming to dance. They are coming to kill bombers. And they expect the jugs to be nothing more than speed bumps. Gabreski flips his guns from safe to armed. "Okay, boys," he murmurs, "here comes the whole damn Luftwaffe." He pushes the throttle forward. The jug lunges ahead. And the battle begins. The first wave of 109 slices down toward the bombers, only to find Thunderbolts diving to meet them head-on. This is new. The Thunderbolts never did this before. They couldn't. Not with the old Hamilton standard propeller that choked the engine at altitude. But now, early 1944, something different spins at the nose of every jug. The paddle blade prop. For massive, broad, reshaped blades. Where the old propeller struggled for bite, the new one grabs the thin air like a fist. Acceleration increases. Climb rate spikes. Throttle response changes from sluggish to explosive. Overnight, the P-47 performs like a different aircraft. German pilots, trained on a year's worth of intelligence reports dismissing the Thunderbolt as slow and unresponsive, are caught completely off guard. A Bf-109G overshoots a jug, something that rarely happened months before. The P-47 snaps upward with astonishing force, shoving the pilot back in his seat. The German tries to climb. He cannot. The jug is already above him. Gabreski rolls inverted, lines up the enemy fighter, and pulls the trigger. 8.50 cal Brownings ignite. The roar fills the cockpit. A streak of light lances from the Jug's wings. The 109 shudders, then its tail shears off in a blossom of sparks and smoke. It tumbles downward in a cartwheeling blur. Gabreski banks hard, scanning for the next target. Behind him, pilots from the 56th follow suit, diving, climbing, slashing at the German formation with terrifying speed. The Luftwaffe is stunned. Not because the Americans are fighting differently, but because they are fighting better, faster, higher, with more firepower than any single-engine fighter the world has ever seen. And the Germans realize something awful. Their intelligence was wrong. Severely wrong. Catastrophically wrong. This is not the same Thunderbolt they laughed at in 1943. This is something else. A monster with wings. Down below, in a cockpit streaking with condensation, Lieutenant Karl-Heinz Müller of JG-3 tightens his grip as he chases a bomber formation. His FW-190A-6 trembles with engine strain at high altitude. Suddenly, traces streak past his wingtip. Bright. Fast. Close. He jerks the stick. A hulking shape streaks overhead. A Jug. But no Jug should fly like that. Not up here. Not with that speed. He tries to climb after it, but his radial engine coughs in the thin air. His climb rate plummets. The Jug continues upward as if pulled by invisible strings. Muller's eyes widen. What in God's name has happened to these Americans? He breaks away and dives for safety. Behind him, two more Thunderbolts appear, then more still. Thunderbolts where Thunderbolts should not be. Thunderbolts climbing like devils in the thin air. Thunderbolts turning with alarming agility thanks to newfound momentum. Thunderbolts firing 8 streams of .50 caliber fire that slice through German formations like scythes. The Luftwaffe came prepared to bully the Americans. Instead, they have walked into a storm. And as casualties mount, panic spreads. A new phrase is heard over German radios. Achtung, neue Propeller. Warning, new propellers. But it is too late. The Americans have changed the rules of the game. And the Jug is ascendant. On the ground, far from the front lines, the real engine of change is not Pratt & Amp, Whitney or Republic Aviation, it is the assembly lines. American factories in Farmingdale, Republic's giant plants, run at all hours. Railcars shuttle fuselages across the country. Women rivet aluminum skins in rows. Engines roar to life on test stands day and night. America is building not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands of P-47s. Thunderbolts fill airfields like steel forests. New pilots train around the clock. Spare parts pile up in warehouses. The Luftwaffe sees this and shudders. Aces like Adolf Galland understand what it means. Germany cannot match the numbers. They cannot replace their pilots. They cannot produce machines like the Americans, machines that get better every month, every week, every day. Galland later admits, "We made a terrible mistake in underestimating the American fighter. It was a fighter built around the logic of American industry. That logic is simple. Build it strong. Build it fast. Build it in numbers no enemy can keep up with." By early 1944, Republic has produced more than 6,000 P-47s. By war's end, the total will be 15,683. More than any other American fighter. The Germans cannot outfight that. They cannot outrun that. They cannot outlast that. The Jug is not just a fighter, it is a symbol. A symbol of a nation that can drown its enemies in machines, horsepower, and firepower. Above Bremen, above Brunswick, above the Ruhr, a new terror spreads through German formations. It is not the sight of a P-47. It is the sound. When a Thunderbolt opens fire, its 8 Brownings produce a roar unlike anything else, a deep, vibrating thunder that echoes through cockpits. German pilots describe it as a tearing sound, like the sky itself ripping open. A single 1-second burst sends *100 rounds downrange. *per gun. *800 rounds total. *13 pounds of metal. Traveling at nearly 900 meters per second. A wall of lead. A wall that disintegrates aircraft. Bf-109s vanish in blossoms of flame. FW-190s snap apart like brittle toys. Aces who once boasted of easily outmaneuvering the Jug now find themselves unable to survive even one pass. They report, Die Amerikaner schießen ohne Abzubremsen. The Americans shoot without slowing down. Because they don't need to slow down. They don't need to turn. They slash through German formations at 400 miles per hour and fire long, devastating bursts. And then they climb back up. Again. And again. And again. This is the new Thunderbolt doctrine. Dive. Fire. Climb. Repeat. Energy fighting, perfected. Boom, elevated to an art. The Germans have no answer. Their fighters cannot withstand that volume of fire. Their pilots cannot escape those diving attacks. Their engines cannot match the Jug's high-altitude performance. And their courage. Even that begins to falter. By spring 1944, the Thunderbolt's reputation evolves again. It is no longer just an escort fighter. It becomes a terror on the ground. The Americans modify the P-47 for low-altitude attack. * 500 pounds bombs. * 1,000 pounds bombs. * rockets. * napalm. * strafing passes at 400 plus miles per hour. And the Germans coin a term for the psychological effect of the Jug's approach. Jabo fever. Fighter bomber fever. It is fear. Panic. The sound of an approaching P-47 engine, deep, throaty, unmistakable, becomes enough to send soldiers diving for cover. Locomotive engineers abandon their trains and run. Truck convoys scatter into ditches. Convoys brake hard and swerve. Thunderbolts destroy. * 3,752 Luftwaffe aircraft in the air. * 86,000 railway cars. * 9,000 locomotives. * 68,000 trucks. German logistics begin to collapse. One Wehrmacht survivor recalls. They came down like angels of death. 8 guns blazing. Fire everywhere. Railway yards burn. Convoys explode. Ammunition depots vanish in mushrooming clouds of smoke. Thunderbolts become omnipresent, patrolling roads, hunting trains, striking anything that moves. The Germans learn to fear shadows in the sky. Because those shadows carry 8.50 calibers and the weight of American industry. The Jug vs the Mi-109, the reversal. Summer 1944. The Luftwaffe is running out of fuel, pilots, and hope, but not out of pride. Some German aces remain defiant. Men like Gunther Roll and Walter Dahl still climb into their cockpits each morning, determined to fight back. They remember the clumsy Jugs of 1943 and believe they can still outmaneuver them. But the battlefield proves otherwise. At 30,000 feet, where the old Bf-109G once had the advantage, the new Thunderbolt is faster, more stable, and more powerful. At low altitude, where the FW-190A once dominated, the Jug's rugged air-cooled engine shrugs off damage and keeps going. German pilots discover, with horror, that the Thunderbolt now holds the energy advantage in almost every maneuver. Their old tactics, dive, climb, turn away, no longer work. Because the Jug can now * dive faster, * climb rapidly, * accelerate quicker, * absorb more punishment, * hit harder. The milk bottle is gone. What remains is a heavyweight executioner. August 25, 1944. Over the Seine River. Oberstleutnant Hans Bernhard Müller, veteran of more than 400 missions, leads a formation of weary Luftwaffe fighters toward a column of American armor advancing near Paris. He has fought Spitfires. He has fought Mustangs. He has fought Lightnings. And he has fought the Jug many times. He once mocked it. He does not mock it now. Approaching the target, he hears it, the distant roar of turbocharged engines. Then the thunder grows louder. And louder. And louder still. His wingman shouts. Achtung! Thunderbolts! Many thunderbolts! Müller looks up. They are everywhere. Dozens. Dark shapes, sun glinting off metal, diving with impossible speed. The ground erupts in explosions where their bombs hit. Rockets streak past in hissing trails. And then the strafing begins. 8.50s from every Jug. Hundreds of guns firing. A deafening roar. Columns of smoke rise from trucks, tanks, and half-tracks. Müller tries to climb away, his old reflex. But a P-47 climbs with him. Effortlessly. He feels the panic rising. This is not possible. This aircraft is too big, too heavy. It should not be able to do this. Then he remembers the stories. The new propeller. The new power curve. The new tactics. He tries to brake left. The jug follows. He tries to dive. The jug stays with him. He tries to roll. The jug matches him. And somewhere in that moment, somewhere between fear and acceptance, Muller understands. The Americans have built the perfect tool to kill his Luftwaffe. Heavy. Fast. Durable. Unstoppable. A German pilot who survives the day sums it up later. We had nothing left that could stop it. The laughter is gone. Forever. Late 1944 into 1945, the Luftwaffe collapses. Fuel shortages ground entire units. New pilots have fewer than 20 hours of training. Veterans are sent on one-way missions. The Thunderbolt dominates everything. Asterisk high altitude interception. Asterisk close air support. Asterisk strafing. Asterisk rail interdiction. Asterisk armed reconnaissance. Asterisk escort missions, until the P-51 takes over long-range duties. Thunderbolts roam the skies freely, their engines echoing across ruined German cities, crushing what remains of the Luftwaffe's fighting spirit. And one truth becomes undeniable. Mockery turned to fear. Fear turned to respect. Respect turned to defeat. The Fliegen Milchflash, the flying milk bottle, became the most feared American fighter of the European War. By VE Day, the jug has written its legacy in fire and iron. It has outlived the mockery. It has outflown the experts. It has outfought the Luftwaffe. It has helped destroy a war machine that once conquered half of Europe. And it has proven, once and for all, that American industrial logic, simple, brutal, effective, can take a flying milk bottle and turn it into a monster.